Hey guys, Foxdrop here with a patch note breakdown video. This video I'm going to be focusing on the Kha'zix changes from patch 4.9, which is the previous patch, and I'm going to be focusing on the jungle changes from patch 4.10, which is the one that just came out. Now first and foremost, I want to apologise. I know the format in which I'm going to do this video is I'm just going to be reading the patch notes from the screen and just be talking about it. It's not going to be anything too interesting to look at visually. I apologise. I know these videos are much more engaging when you have things like gameplay footage in the background or something like that, but in order to do that, that would probably increase the amount of time invested into this video by easily tenfold, because I don't have any clips to use right now because my lower replay buggered. So I'm in a bit of a tight spot. I don't have a lot of time right now because I've got a lot of preparations to do for the LCS London on the weekend. So I'm really sorry that this is not a rushed video, but I'm not going to be able to spend as much time on it as I would like to for the finishing touches, you know, just to make it look a bit better. So I apologize in advance for that. I'm sorry that if this just looks really boring to you guys, but it's all you need to do really is just listen to what I'm saying, and that's the important stuff at the end of the day anyway. So again, sorry that it's not going to be too interesting, but let's get right into the patch changes. So the Kha'zix change from patch 4.9, a lot of people have been asking me about. Basically, I'm not going to read all the changes for you. I'll put a link to all of these patch notes in the description as well, so you can read the changes for yourself. But what they've done is that they've nerfed the damage from his Q, specifically the isolation damage, until it is evolved. Your Q doesn't really do that much damage anymore unless it is evolved and you are isolated. In addition, your Q doesn't do any percentage health damage anymore, so it's not as good for taking away like Dragon and Baron. That's a bit of a minor point compared to the nerf that it received on the other side. So that's that's the basic change for his Q. It doesn't really do that much damage unless your target's isolated, and even then it doesn't do that much damage unless your evolved claws do some good damage still, but only when they're isolated. Your void spikes, your W, do more damage to jungle monsters, but still it's kind of like, you know, it's your W, but when you evolve your W, you also have an increased slow as well. And your ulti now doesn't have the damage reduction on your stealth anymore. So the long and short of what I think about Jungle Kha'zix is that his ulti, there's no point evolving this anymore in my opinion. I don't think it's necessary. The damage reduction removal that's pretty much the only reason you evolved it in the first place, so you don't need that anymore. When I played Jungle Kha'zix, when I was playing around with him, the first game I played with him, I was playing a game with Kha'zix from Millennium, who are in the LCS. He's their jungler, and he told me that you should be maxing your W, evolving your Q. So I played around with that for a little while. I also played around with, you know, maxing my Q, evolving my W, doing a lot of different stuff. There's a lot of playing around to do, basically. That's kind of that's kind of the underlying theme here, is that Jungle Kha'zix has a lot of testing to do still, and I think there's a lot of different ways you can play him, whether you want to evolve your W, whether you want to evolve your Q. Either way, you know, it's not been enough time to really say whether this Kha'zix is still good or not. I think he is not as strong as he was before, most definitely, but I also feel like he's still good. I feel like if you want to play Jungle Kha'zix, you can play him, and he's still not bad. But I also don't think that people have really tapped into his potential too much. I also think that there's good arguments for evolving both your Q and your W, but you have to evolve your E at level 11 at least. If you don't evolve it at level 6, you have to get it at level 11. There is no debating that. You can't get your Q and then your W, or your W and then your Q. Which means that if you evolve, whichever one you choose to evolve first at level 6, that is a huge opportunity cost from the other one which you did not evolve, because you can only pick that up at level 16 for your last evolution. So you really have to think about it. And that's a decision you're going to have to make when you're playing him, and just play around with him and see which kind of playstyle you prefer. So moving on to the patch 4.10 notes here, let me scroll to the top. I'm only going to be talking about the jungle changes here, and again, like I say, all the changes will be in the link to this patch notes will be in the description. I'm not going to read it out to you, so you can read it and get a good idea of what the changes are. Now, Nidalee is something I wouldn't usually cover if I'm focusing about the jungle, but a lot of people have been asking me whether or not she's a good jungler now. So basically, I think that Nidalee has improved clear speeds now because of her kind of slightly reworked kit, and also the fact that you can now get your Cougar form from level 1. She's not that great of a clearer early on, but she gets pretty good as the game goes on. Her clearing becomes perfectly acceptable. It becomes fairly decent. But whether or not, to answer the question of whether or not Nidalee is a good jungler, it's no, I don't think she is really that good of a jungler. So first and foremost, when you're deciding what makes a good jungler, you have to think about the clear speeds, because if something has a really bad clear speed, then it's going to be an awful jungler, because you're going to fall behind by yourself and you're going to get counter jungled all day. It's really, really horrible. You need to be able to clear in the jungle. Nidalee can do that, but the second step is, what is the point of picking this jungler? What is the point of having this jungle in my arsenal as opposed to something else? What is the point of playing this champion? And really, there is no point to playing jungle Nidalee. There's nothing really that amazing about her. There's nothing which you would think, oh yeah, this is cool from jungle Nidalee and no one else can do this, or she does this a lot better than everyone else. That's not the case. She doesn't do anything like that. However, at the same time, I think if you want to play jungle Nidalee, you can do that. I think that she works. She definitely works. So if you fancy playing jungle Nidalee and you're really up for it, go for it. Play her. But I don't think it's going to be viable to the extent where you'd want to pick it in ranked. And I think that there are a lot of other better jungle choices out there. Skarner is the other the biggest jungle change in this patch. He's been semi-reworked again. And the problem with Skarner is that it's really, really hard to determine whether or not he's going to be a strong jungler, because there's no real baseline for him. Because Skarner's really had big issues fitting into the meta rather than his kit overall, which I guess is kind of contradictory, because his problems with not fitting in the meta are to do with the fact that his kit doesn't really fit the meta, so I guess that doesn't make too much sense to me saying that. But the overall issue is that basically it's just hard to say whether or not Skarner's going to be useful or not. That's really the issue. But I do think these changes are fairly decent. I think his new passive is very, very nice. Basically, it's very similar to Braum's passive, where if you hit someone with a damaging ability, you will apply a stack of your passive, and then after 3 stacks, you will do bonus damage to them, and you will stun them for a few seconds. Well, for less than 1 second actually. But the difference between this and Braum's passive is that Skarner is the only person who can trigger his own passive. Braum can have his passive triggered by his allies. Anytime you have a reliable CC or reliable stun, that champion tends to be, not all the time, but tends to be a fairly, that's very beneficial trait to be having. It's a very appealing trait to be having when you have a character that can do that. And this little write-up that Riot have written here pretty much summarizes a lot of what I can tell you as well. Basically, he's a good effective peeler, a good CC bot, because Skarner can run around and tag whoever he wants with this passive, and he can stun a lot of people in a team fight. Kind of similar to Udyr's bear stance, except Udyr's bear stance is like a lot easier to stun everyone, because you just bitch slap them, whoever you want to bitch slap, and they're stunned. Skarner has to apply 3 stacks. But he's good at peeling people, and his dueling is not so bad either anymore. His move speeds, he gets the move speed steroid from his Q as well, which is nice, which means it's easy for him to apply that passive. And yeah, but at the end of the day, I actually think Skarner is a kind of decent jungler. I don't think he's top tier by any means, and I do think he gets outclassed by a lot of other junglers. But I also think that if you want to play him and you really enjoy playing Skarner, you can play him. I would even say you could play him in ranked with, quite frequently, and not really struggle too much with that. I think he definitely works. But like I say, I don't think he'll be top tier, but I do think these changes are interesting, and the core of it is really having a good, reliable, hard CC makes him quite appealing. Excuse me. So Galio, these are minor changes. Gragas is a champion I want to touch on a little bit here, just because he was changed in a few patches ago, and he was reworked quite heavily, and he was actually a very, very good AP jungler, like probably the best AP jungler before his rework. But nowadays I don't think he's that amazing as a jungler, because now he's not much of a mage. He's more of like a kind of mage tank hybrid, almost like an AP bruiser, I suppose you could say, or a good tank. Like, he's not as much of an AP assassin or an AP caster as much as he is a bruiser. So if you want to play him as a jungler, I think the best way to be doing that is to be playing him majority tanky, I would say. Maybe a bit of AP in there as well, but I wouldn't go too far into the AP department, because I don't think that really works too much as jungle Gragas. Although, you could pick up a few pieces here and there, but I would predominantly stick to being tanky. Maybe like some CDR as well, so you could be have a lot of utility, maybe like an Iceborne Gauntlet or something, which synergizes nice with your W. that kind of stuff. I think Ragus works quite nicely as a top laner and as a support, playing that kind of bruiser tank style. But like I say, as a jungler, I think you have to stick more towards the tank than the AP side of things. Kha'zix is actually a pretty good jungler as well right now. I think he clears very quickly. His duels are very good if you can land your skills on isolated targets in 1v1s. That's pretty nice, and also it's always fun stealing kills from halfway across the map with your ulti when your allies are fighting like 1v1 in bot lane or something. These changes don't really have anything to do with junglers right here, so I'm going to skip through them. Jungle Twitch, kind of, I guess I should mention a little bit here, is that this ambush nerf here doesn't really mean anything, I don't think, to Jungle Twitch, outside of the team fights which will be happening, but you'll usually be engaging the ganks with your ambush, so it's not like you'll have them to use during a fight. So this, stealth timing doesn't really mean too much. But this passive change is quite harsh, because it's actually, before level 6, it's kind of like nerfed by half, really. It's quite a lot, really, in my opinion. And considering this passive stacks as well, I reckon that's going to add up, and that's going to hurt his clear speed, it's going to hurt his early damage. And considering Twitch often would level 2 gank with red buff and with his passive, and both that, when you have red buff and passive ticking on people, that was a lot of extra damage as well. So people would often die after they flash, like 5 seconds after they flashed and run away. The red buff and the deadly venom will burn them, and they'll die. But I don't think that's going to happen that much, especially at level 1. At level 2, your true damage is being cut in half, literally in half. But anything else here, I don't really think applies to junglers too much. In fact, it doesn't apply to junglers at all. The only one I would say maybe these new item changes, but lifesteal items aren't really that important on junglers. Lifesteal is not a good stat for junglers because it's unnecessary. You usually get some potions when you're jungling anyway, and also in addition to that, the spirit stone items that you'll be having will be giving you enough regen. You don't need lifesteal. It's a wasted stat when you're buying on a jungler mostly. And change the Doran's Blade don't affect how you're going to buy it now either. You very rarely get Doran's Blades on junglers anyway, but if you were going to buy one, you could still buy one. It's not really that much of a change. Blade of the Ruined King has also got nerfed as well, so it's more good now for it's less of a burst item, more of a sustained damage item, but I still think if the champions you're going to buy this on, you'd probably still buy it on, in my opinion. But everything else I think is not really, done in, it's just minor stuff. It doesn't really mean anything. So yeah, that's pretty much all that needs to be covered for this patch and for the Kha'zix changes as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Like I said originally, I apologise that it's not anything too engaging, too thrilling, but hopefully it was still good enough if you guys had some questions or stuff like that about wanted to see my opinion on some of the patch changes. But thanks a lot for watching this video, guys. I'll try to get back to making good quality videos for you guys again. When I've got some more time, I'll really get back on that. I need to find some time to do that. But thanks very much for watching, like I said, and have a good day, guys, and I'll see you in my next video.